So, okay, great. If you can turn on your cameras, that will be great. If not, then not. I'm not that strict with cameras on. I know some people prefer to be a bit more relaxed with that. Everything is good. So, again, thanks for registering. Thanks for coming. I'm going to start this international webinar with a very short presentation about the MAAT project, what it is. So I will share my screen, and let me see, how do I do this? Share, yeah. I suppose you can see it now. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do, yes. So, approximately 1.5 years ago, Placemaking Western Balkans is the organization I work with, has entered an Erasmus Plus European project called MAAT, or Mobilizing Youth for Gender Inclusive Cities. For those who are not familiar with Erasmus Plus projects, it's a scheme of European Commission granting scheme to support formal and non-formal learning. And our project is executed together with several other partners, with University Nettuno from Italy, with Helix Connect from Romania, with Citizens in Power from Cyprus, ISCE from Portugal, and Fondazione Giacomo Brodolini, also from Italy. So we got together and got this wonderful project called Mobilizing Youth for Gender Inclusive Cities, working in 5 different contexts across Southeast Europe, with the idea to bring the non-formal education to youth about this, the topic of gender inclusive cities. First, to inform them what it is, explain what could be their role in understanding what is gender inclusive city, and also to hear it from them. How do they think and about the topic? And not only from youth, but also from the youth workers, because part of the project is aimed to equip different youth workers with different tools to work with young people on this particular topic. One of those tools that we have developed is a gamified e-learning experience, and I'm going to talk a little bit more shortly about that, because I'm very much curious to hear your opinion and your expertise and your experiences when working with the topic of gender inclusiveness, and especially on the topic of how can we design better spaces for women and girls. Really looking forward to that input. But before that, again, a short overview of what we were aiming to do and what we did in the last 1.5 hours. And as I say, the center part is the Inclusivio game, which is not just a game, it's a kind of small virtual city simulator when we have presented several situations in which women and girls can find themselves in urban areas. 5 different conflicting situations, with the idea to collect the ideas and reflections from youth. How would they solve that kind of situations? Have they been themselves in one of those conflicting situations? And also offer them different set of resources to learn more about it, read more about it, and try to apply some of the recommendations in their own environment or in their own everyday life. We have developed also different kind of tools for youth workers as well. You can all find it on the soon to be uploaded on the website of the project. And before we go more into the discussion of the topic of creating the good public space for women and girls, and what are the challenges. I would like to announce that you can even test this game yourself, because it's still in development. And I will share the link to the testing of that game soon. So in your free time or whatever you find it suitable, we would really appreciate to get your feedback on that as well. So to summarize, the aims of our project was to promote non-formal learning, because as we know, in a lot of official curriculum for young people, whatever level of education they are following, there is not that much attention to this particular topic. We wanted also to increase citizens' engagement and especially competences in youth, to educate them to develop more know-how, how to participate in decision-making processes, to empower them to be aware that they do have the possibilities to say something about how their environment has been developed, to raise awareness on the impact when you do not have enough knowledge about certain gender mainstreaming issues, and finally to promote a new set of values, how inclusive cities should look like and how inclusive cities should work. So I'm not going to go very deep into all the details that we have developed. As I said, you can check the project website and see all those resources. I'm much more curious in what is your work and what exactly do you do, and what are your experiences when you work on the topic of making a city better for women. So I would like first to hear also a little bit about your background. With Sreshta, I know already from some other interactions on the same topic, but I will start with you. So please, just a few, words about yourself, and then let's hear it from others as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am basically from Kolkata, and my background, this is in India, and my background is basically in sociology, but my interest emerged in the idea of feminist cities and how those cities could be, there are successful examples from Vienna, from Oslo. So I've seen examples being strategically put out in the global north.
Yeah.
Now, what if I wanted to bring in the idea of feminist cities in the global south? That actually took me towards a particular stage that somehow I would start doing it from the very city level basics. So, from the very basics of it, that is neighborhood level. Within the city, from the very neighborhood level, what are the changes that citizens would want in order to look at their own specific spaces from a gendered perspective? That made me start these gender community walks, which we are doing right now. It started from the month of June this year. So, and what we do here is basically intervene in particular infrastructures throughout our own cities. We select certain specific locations. We have covered south, central, and north of Kolkata this way. And we have gone to the commercial hub of our city, as well as certain urban commons, like one of the biggest lakes in our own city. And we have ventured through parks, we have ventured through streets, we have ventured through even docks specifically. And we have seen that, how women utilize space that is completely different from how a man would, because there has been like multiple number of people coming in, youth especially, that is master's students, bachelor students, all from sociology, urban planning, even English literature. So there's like huge variations in the number of people, and they have given in their own interventions. So men have found their body mapping to be completely different than what women would have, suggested that they might have felt uncomfortable in certain geographical locations. So these were the variations, and the best part is the counter mapping, where everyone has reimagined Kolkata in a different way altogether. So they have remapped Kolkata. So I have this beautiful picture in a chart paper where everyone were given like a map of Kolkata and they have like remapped it. So they have made certain zones, like this zone is for shouting out loud, this zone will be specifically for bicycles, and this zone will be for petting unicorns. So this is like the variation that they have tried to imagine,
Yeah.
that a city could be made more accessible for everyone, for all ages, no matter what. So yeah, this is our project, and yeah, we are working and we are continuing with the walks. That's it.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks a lot. I mean, I really like the idea of the walks because while we were working on this particular project, there has been a lot of focus on public space infrastructure and streets as spaces which play such a significant role in everyday life of
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's relatively less attention on the experiences of women, which are totally different from those of men. Not even to start with, the real hard data on how the mobility patterns completely differ for these two groups. Great, thanks a lot, Shweta. Okay, so from Raquel, I see that camera and mic is not working. Okay, doesn't matter. I know Raquel from a couple of years ago. So please just read her very short CV. She's a great person working a lot on the topic. And I know that she also led the Women in Urbanism podcast, which I was the guest from. So looking forward to interact again. Anusha, maybe you would like to say something very shortly about what you
Yes,
work.
I can.
Yes.
Um, so my name is Anusha. I'm an anthropologist that's currently employed by the Building Institute in Slovenia. I am the first anthropologist to be employed by them. So we're working on projects about planning space. I haven't worked on more gender-defined spaces yet in that perspective, but I am an anthropologist, so it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
uh, and I do a lot of work between Ljubljana and Belgrade, so this is topical in all cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that you are commuting between those two countries. I'm commuting between the Netherlands and Serbia, so I know this buy local living
Yeah.
in all its challenges. But great
Mhm.
to have you here, and great to hear that the official institutions are now working with anthropologists. I think
Mhm.
it's something new and something that should be really celebrated because this kind of multi-disciplinary work is not always taken by the official planning institutions. So
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to hear more about your work.
Mhm.
Great.
Cool.
Cool. Manavi, can we have something from you as well?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Manavi. I am joining in from Boston, actually.
Mhm.
It's the middle of the workday, so I actually am in office, so can't put on the camera
It's
at the
okay.
moment. But I am a design researcher. I work on a range of different urban planning projects at my job. Um, However, I'm sort of always challenged by how my own research process could be a bit more inclusive. There is definitely not as much conversation around gender inclusive approaches on projects within the city that I'm working in, and I think that some of my projects right now can really use this lens and ensure that I'm looking at the data in a more intentional way. So I think that motivated me to join in today.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining. Wonderful to see that it's a super international group. Uh, Catherine, something more from you?
Hi, I'm Catherine Whitmore and I'm a landscape architect. We're based out of Oxford and London in the UK.
Mhm.
And my role is more, I get involved obviously in the design of spaces, and particularly we were talking about the public open spaces and the public realm. And so therefore my interest is how we have that inclusive inclusivity within those spaces. And we work in a range of different sectors and different environments. So it's not just working in the urban environment, it's also working in that more rural environment as well, and thinking outside of the city as well. And also that sort of area on the edge of the city of actually as people coming in as well.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's usually the scale which is not so often talked about, to have this peri-urban or rural scale, which is, I found it super interesting and, super relevant because there is a lot of focus on urban, and definitely there are problems or challenges to be solved in urban, but, if we're talking about the certain gender perception, it's almost the same problems that you have in urban environments you do also have in these peri-urban or rural environments, even more. So that's great that there is an interest to that. I see some other people joining, but maybe they're not that ready yet to go deep into presenting themselves. So just preparing the mics and the cameras. So I would like to just have really a kind of open dialogue and hear the reflections from you all, as we have placed in our announcement. This is just a cozy talk. We are not going to do too academical or too complicated about it. So one of the topics I'm quite or themes that I'm quite curious to hear it from you is, when we were designing the game, I gave you the link. You can just try it whenever you have time and just leave some comments on that. We decided to, we needed to pick up 5 situations which should be, characteristic for the women experiences in urban environment. And it was not that easy to choose, because there are so many different conflicting positions you can find yourself. And we have chosen the following situations. We have one situation which deals with parks and safety and security when walking through the park in the evening and being confronted with a group of, men or others who you don't know not exactly, how to deal with, how to perceive them. We had situation when you're in a public transport and you have been looked upon or harassed in a certain way, which discourages you to use the public transport. We had also situations dealing with public amenities, but not having enough public amenities, or whether they are present, but you somehow have to pay for them, so they're not openly available for women and girls. So I'm quite curious to hear it from you. What do you think is the most typical daily experience that we can address or we should discuss when we are talking about, what do we need to improve in public spaces for women? Maybe to start with Sresta again, or just jump in if you have some kind of idea about it.
Oh, shall I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. There were certain recommendations given by the participants, and it was one of the recommendations that I'm going to be sharing. So we explored a market space as a group, and when we were going there as a group, so we understand that there are different class positions. There's a intersectional dimension when we are exploring these spaces, and keeping in mind that everyone's not as in the same position as we are in, because we have a different class position in comparison to all the people who are there in the markets and selling. So all the vendors and the hawkers. So when with them, we have to keep in mind what and how we are going to approach them, what we can converse about. So while this conversation was going on, there was this participant Meher. So she said that while we are communicating and working as a group, it feels like we are barging into their space.
Uh-huh.
But imagine that if you go alone, it would feel like that they are the ones who are intruding in your space. So not only your bodily integrity, but also your mental space.
Yeah.
So it's a walk by, I think, Fiona Vera Gray, men's intuition, women's embodiment.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, we understood that our embodied sense changes the moment this gaze comes upon us. So when we are in a group or when we are accompanied by someone else, that we feel like that we are intruding their space, we are entering their
Yeah.
part of the world. But whenever we are alone, that gaze completely shifts, and it's their gaze.
Yeah.
So this is how the interpretation was done. So that completely changes our day-to-day, walking and which space we want to acquire, which what is the level of anonymity we want to have in the city spaces,
Yeah.
and particular spaces where we feel more vulnerable in comparison to others. So yeah, that was something which is a day-to-day basis, like everyday problem for all body types and all identities, I believe, especially the queer and women.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very recognizable standpoint. We for these particular projects, we didn't research that one. We kind of sketched it and then presented it to different panel discussions and different workshops. And we also tried to add a youth dimension to it. What is first, how does youth perceive that? Young women and girls. And secondly, how can we actually, empower youth to be more vocal? Or how can we educate them about these perceptions, these feelings, the way of, as you say, gazing upon the different types of persons and bodies. And one of the we held this panel with experts, youth workers actually, and one of the remarks that really stayed with me is that one of the youth workers said, what we often see is this kind of, patronizing way of dealing with youth, like they don't know anything, and we should tell them everything. We should really, first, we should really more listen to them, and secondly, we should maybe stop infantilizing them and keeping them away from these topics. Like they should not be aware they're still young. They don't need to bother themselves with these complexities as genders and types or whatever. So that really stayed with me. Like that's the attitude of this particular youth worker. The other attitude that was coming from the youth organization itself during the same panel, they said okay, we definitely want to be part of all kinds of research dealing with what are the design tools for gender mainstreaming, or how do we recognize what's wrong and how can we fix it, whether it's through design, whether it's through art, whether it's through some other practice. And they said, but we never get to these projects because we have been seen as a young people who have no experience. So we don't get into the projects at all. And I was like, okay, tell me, can you describe concrete, how do you see the solution to this? And they said well, there should be a space for us to be our own project managers and please do give us a chance to try to guide ourselves a project on this topic and see what kind of results we can generate. And that would be very valuable for us. And I think that was such a great remark. Unfortunately, that's not how a lot of grant programs are working, unfortunately, but maybe that's a good signal to give that there should be somehow a framework that allows, if you want to get young people involved in the topics of gender mainstreaming, then give them a project. Don't make them a kind of passive subject, whether they're like teaching them or just asking them to give a feedback or opinion. Just let them do those things themselves. I think that was absolutely amazing lesson that we got from that panel. I would really like to get something in motion like that. Does someone else wants to maybe add something to this particular perspective? If not, I will go to the next question. And oh, please, Sesta, yes.
Sorry, I just keep on saying and blabbering because I just remembered when you were speaking about like making them active agents of change.
Yes.
We did a work with school children.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 standards, so maybe like 14, 15 years,
Yeah.
all of them. So I saw that I just made some group leaders and I divided the group. So there were like 26 and 27 of them. I
Mm-hmm.
divided them into groups and I made each group leaders. And these group leaders, they were carrying along all the people. So I just gave them like a small understanding that this is how we are going to interpret the built
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
How you're going to see the structures. They imbibed that lesson and then they disseminated it in their own manner altogether
Yeah.
among their peers. And they said that this is what we are going to see. And the amount of work that they did so precisely, I have pictures of all their
Yeah.
answers of interviews. And I'm happy to share with you because
Yeah.
they're really constructed. And I really got so inspired by their work. So one person was like standing and smoking. So this
Yeah.
girl asked me, can I just go and tell him that, he's doing something wrong for the environment and also for our health. So I said, yes, please go ahead. And she didn't even hesitate. She
Yeah.
went to a person and she started asking that, don't you think, uncle, that you should be not doing this because this may harm the future of our health as well as your health. Don't you have a child at home?
Yeah.
So he panicked and left that space. He
Yeah.
couldn't answer the girl.
Yeah.
He threw the cigarette and he left that space. So this actually gave them a voice and they were happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They actively given their interventions and these interventions cannot be given by adults.
Yes.
The type of interventions they have given. Because in the map that I constructed and they put in the like interventions through sticky notes. And
Yeah.
there and they have made beautiful body maps, the constructed
Mm-hmm.
body map where a person could feel discomfort, in which part of the city they could feel discomfort, everything's there. So that data is something which I'm looking forward to publish very, very soon. So yes, that once we publish, everyone will get to know like why it's important to involve the youth more in advocating for city spaces, better city spaces and infrastructures.
Yes, I think that's really, really super important, and not just involve them, but give them the responsibility to shape that involvement themselves. Give them just a very clear framework. Why are they doing it, and how the output that they are producing is going to be used. So giving this sense of worth of everything they do, because a lot of times that's been just overlooked. You need some kind of feedback for whether it's your academic research or whether it's some kind of simulation of civic participation. But the moment when the project is their own, there is really this deeper deeper involvement, and also they learn so much more than just giving a lesson about something. So I think that's not easy to shape in a good way. There is a lot of mistrust, as these young women who were part of our workshop said, like that they just cannot enter the research teams because they have been considered, like you can be the subject, but you cannot be the active researcher. You cannot be the active knowledge producer, but you can be the subject. I thought that was quite really refreshing to see that kind of perspective. And they said it's not just for the projects working on gender and better public spaces for women. It's also projects working for cultural projects or trying to get other things done with the communities. They always get this barrier. I would like to tackle also another topic, which is I'm just reading the chat from Mariana. It's okay that you can't turn on your mic. Thanks for your comments in the chat. It's this feeling of being welcomed in public spaces. We really had a struggle while working on a project on certain scenes that we have simulated in this gamified e-learning experience. We really had some kind of trouble how to simulate this unwelcoming feeling to public space, because it's not just the unwelcoming from the physical side. Sometimes it's even like that, unwelcoming from the physical side. You don't have good lights or you don't have good paths, and you just don't enter that space because even from the distance, you just see that it's something that it's not for you as a woman. You're like, oh, this doesn't look good. But it's also when you are in a good designed space, there are some, these unwritten rules or gazes or feelings, or there's this group that appropriates. And I've heard again from our young participants in the workshop, it's like they, usually it's the men and boys who take space, not in a physical way, but they just take space in a kind of very strange appropriation way. Like they're there, they're present, and it's a kind of almost a territorial definition when you have to kind of not really have a distance, but to be aware of that you're walking along that group, and you never know how the group is going to react on you. In most of the cases, they're going to be neutral, but in some cases, women really do feel uncomfortable when they have to walk along the larger group of men, especially in the evening. But what I wanted to ask is, because I see there are a lot of experts here in the audience who are working with public spaces of play, spaces of schoolyards, and spaces of where different groups, boys and girls, and they all do mix together. I would like to hear something about their experiences, whether researching or designing for these two different groups. Do they see that, would they like to see more, let's say, women-specific spaces or girl-specific spaces, or they do still think that trying to mix those groups is better? I have myself an opinion on that, but I would like to hear someone from the audience. Maybe Catherine, do you have some reflections from your practice?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful, and also you have to think beyond just the two genders as well. You need gender neutral spaces as well. And it's what you're seeking to do with the public space you're creating, and ideally you want people to work together, but in certain situations some genders may wish to be separated from other genders, or certain groups from other groups. So it's creating that mix of spaces as well, but also allowing there to be sufficient safety and security so they feel secure in that location, as well as having a level of privacy or something if they're wanting to be separate from another space. And I think it's to do with the quality of the design of the space, as you were saying about you might approach something and it's slightly it's deterring you from entering that space. A lot of that's to do with the design, but it's also how that space is maintained, and how it's considered within the wider context, and how you exit and your entrance point, your exit point? Do you feel like there is no way to get out of that space?
Yeah.
If there is a way, your exit point, you feel like you're less confined. So I think that's generally, and it's not particularly gender specific, but obviously with women, we have that concern in the background, and also with other gender groups, they have that concern as well. So it's trying to create that sort of safe, natural surveillance, but also creating a bit of space that people can have a bit of privacy, or if they wanted to be alone, they don't feel like they're being completely overlooked as well. So it is quite subtle and quite difficult to achieve, as you can imagine. But it's looking at across the space and not looking at for one solution that fixes everything.
Yeah, that's why it makes it so difficult to make this really, really, really good, universally well designed spaces, because especially with larger infrastructures, and I have worked for a couple of years advising different let's say infrastructure providers like the railways and those kind of companies who were at one point aware that the engineering solutions are actually quite scary for a lot of people, especially if it's underground spaces, metro stations, all kind of big railway stations. So they looked into the analysis and the design solutions to retrofit this infrastructures, which have been made purely from the technical point of view. So technically, they work great for the trains. They work great for capable people between 15 and 55, and then it's fine. But if you want to look at other groups using it, suddenly you see most of the time this issue of perception of safety and security, which in a lot of infrastructural designs were just not being taken care of. I'm sure everyone knows these scary metro stations with columns you cannot see who is behind it. You see endless tunnels, or even if it's above ground, you're maybe you see that the way the mobility has been planned. You have huge parking spaces, when you really feel unsafe if you're alone, or you have large distances between certain areas that you have to walk. So all these elements have been embedded in urban planning for so many years, especially in the modernist approaches of separating the functions. Everything has to be first for the system and then for the humans. So to kind of retrofit it, to turn it back a bit, or better say, enrich it with the complexity of different perceptions, is quite a difficult task. It requires a lot of skill, a lot of design skill. It requires also a lot of budgets to transform these, to adapt those spaces, to be more, let's say, welcoming to all genders and all differences. And I think that there is a lot of task in that kind of adaptation or retrofitting of existing infrastructure for the designers. And even the new infrastructure that's being made, there are a lot of examples when even the new infrastructure is not welcoming at all for everyone. It's still dominating this kind of functionalistic engineering approach, saying like, oh, this is the width, this is the height, we just do it. And people need to adapt. System is like it is, and people need to adapt. So that's
I think there's also other aspects, because obviously there's also the cultural aspects. So what might be for one that you're thinking this is a hard engineering solution, for others that may not be as well. So it's also people's perceptions that, as you so rightly say, are different. And actually having some of these hard engineering solutions might actually be more favored by some groups than others. So it's from a design point of view, you've got to consider what your audience is going to be and what is going to be in the future as well, because you'll be designing for a point in time, but then you're designing most of these facilities for 20, 30, 40 years in the future. as well. So it also needs to evolve as the groups change who will be using that space. So it's looking at all those different factors when you're starting to and trying to actually home in on those factors and reduce them down to a great extent, or otherwise you will end up not designing anything.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly. It's quite a complex thing, and especially those spaces of mobility. And I mentioned at the beginning, there is such a huge difference in mobility behavior between men and women because they also work differently. Daily urban life looks differently. The physiology is also different. So there's so many of these fine nuances which need to be taken into consideration when you are actually making a quite heavy, robust infrastructures which need to last for 20, 30 years. So to build in that kind of flexibility is not always an easy task. But I think that's something that the new generations of designers need to learn more. And that's also my final question to you all, because I was also very curious about how can we not really change the curriculum, but what are the topics that need to be brought into the curriculum of young designers to equip them with knowledge to deal with these sensitivities such as gender mainstreaming in planning and design, or even accepting all different identities and whatsoever. So what do you think should be, or to be very simple, what should be the new subject that could enter the curriculum of educating the young designers? Or what did you miss in your own education? I mean, when I was studying, this was not a topic at all. It was like, okay, you just make a design according to universal human body, and then it will work. Okay, I see here. Oh, sorry. So I will need to read the comments from Raquel because of the sound. Okay. Schoolyards don't offer diverse elements. That's well known. Yes. Okay. It's been thinking about spaces to sit, meet, and talk, creative, and not only thinking about which slide or swing we're going to add in the school. Yeah, I would really like to know what is the hype with swings right now. I see that a lot of projects, like if you don't have a swing in a public park, you are not gender inclusive. So that's a bit of a puzzle to me. What's this with the swings? And for young designers, implement the social aspect when designing. I think that's really really super important.
I would also say, like, I think there are just some such temporal factors that are so big in just how women or other genders that is not a man sort of experience spaces. And I think so much of it is to do with the daytime, the actual temporality of the day, the foot traffic, the crowd, those kind of elements which really transform perceptions of a space. So I think having and that's one thing that I sort of I'm increasingly getting exposed to, and it really changes the way how people navigate the city. So they may not be like permanent spatial structures or elements, but they're sort of fleeting in nature, and they cause certain behavioral patterns in people. So having that as part of the curriculum.
Yeah. That's thanks. It sounds good. Sounds great. I think that's also something that it's lacking at the moment. And I think that's also why you need to have this non-formal or lifelong learning programs, because maybe it's a little bit optimistic or a little bit too ambitious to expect that the curriculum can be changed. It takes really a lot of time. It's not that easy just because a group of, motivated designers thinks that curriculum should change. It doesn't mean it will change. But on the other hand, if we can offer the other formats of learning, that's a very good very good way too. More gender audits on infrastructures, yes, that's also a very good tool, and that's something that has to do with generally the process of how do you acquire plans and how do you make certain structures. That's not everywhere as part of the program. From my own practice here in the Netherlands, I know that some of the plans are very strong on it, but it's not always like that. It depends on what kind of plan it is. The swings question. Oh, here's the answer to that. When asking to children, they just say they love it. Okay. I understand for children. I was just a bit curious about the swings being offered also for, let's say, teenagers and young adults as a way of, kind of new approach for being sensitive to all kinds of genders. But yeah, maybe they work. I'm not so sure. I would like to wrap up with a simple question. I think everyone got a little bit of the parts of the answers already, and that's the question of what should be the next steps. How should we approach further the topic of making cities better for women? Is it more about educating the next generation of designers? Is it more about the research? Do we need more practical research on the topics to make things visible? Because we know that there is a lot of, let's say, gender-related data that it's missing. Or is it more about trying to influence the policy making and try to be more vocal on that level? Do you have any reflections on that? What should be or maybe the combination of steps? Yes.
If I have to say,
Sure.
I would say first two steps combined.
First two steps combined. Okay, more research and more more research and more
practice-based, more practice-based and applied research.
Applied research and education. Okay, good. Is there someone who believes in policy, advocating for policy change? No, okay, that's also
no, I wouldn't agree on policy change. I think at the moment you need to demonstrate why you need it to a great extent before you go towards that, and how would you have it within policy change as well.
Yeah, that's something that I feel as well. I'm also not so much a policy or process person, since being a designer and a researcher for so many years. I can't really relate much to the process. Like we need to change the process, yes, but as you said, like let's give some evidences in order to influence that process or change it, and not just try to change the process for the sake of changing without knowing why are you changing for. So that's yeah. But on the other hand, I see that there is a lot of talks about gender mainstreaming coming from all kinds of sides, but not from the design side. The design side is the least that it's coming from. It's more from the social sciences, from political sciences, even economy, they're all kind of more vocal in that. And from the design side, it's like, okay, you know, yes, we need it, but there is not so much focus on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but okay. There is also an answer of Mariana. In a mix, okay. It would lean into applied research and policymaking actions, yes, but that's always a bit a problem because, as we know, a lot of, especially urban bureaucracies, urban management works a lot in silos, and if you want to do this mix of all the approaches, that's something they definitely do not like that much because they're used to certain way of work. Okay. I see that time is slowly passing by, and I would like to definitely thank all of you for the contribution. I think I do have your emails on in the application, so I can send you the recording, and you can use it for everything you do. And I hope to see you soon again on some of our meetups. The City Design for Women National Conference that was part of this project last month, we are hoping to extend it to the next year and to make it a kind of yearly meetup. And the same goes for the online meetups. So just stay in touch, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.